More than half of all fatal dog attacks in the UK last year were committed by XL bullies. That's what the group Bully Watch say, and they want people to stop buying and breeding them. But animal welfare groups say banning dog breeds is not the solution. So what is? Hello and welcome to Roundtable. I'm Enda Brady. Now, as a crossbreed, XL bullies are not recognised by the UK Kennel Club. To create this dog, an American Pit Bull Terrier and an American Staffordshire Terrier were used as breeding stock. They first appeared on British soil in 2015. And the Prime Minister now wants these dangerous dogs banned. But is that the right way to go?
It was a miracle no one was killed. What you're seeing is an XL bully out of control in the streets of Birmingham. A brave passerby tries to help as an 11-year-old girl lies helplessly on the floor, but he's dragged down by the dog's powerful jaws. Video of the attack went viral, with Home Secretary Suella Braverman calling it appalling. After another XL bully killed a man a week later, it prompted British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak to ban the dogs by the end of the year. Protests broke out opposing the ban, and in a joint statement, British animal welfare groups, including the RSPCA, said a ban was not the solution. The groups blamed irresponsible breeding and ownership. Recent reports show bully abandonments are on the rise, and worried owners are uncertain about the future of their beloved pets. However, it's undeniable that these XL bully dogs can turn lethal.
Well, let's meet our panel. Joining us in the studio is James Crosby. He's a former police officer and an expert on dangerous dogs. And Anna Webb, a Dog's Life podcast host, dog trainer and nutritionist. And joining us from Kent in the United Kingdom on Skype is dog behaviourist Pippa Rapps, founder of the Best Behaviour School for Dogs. Anna, I want to come to you first. The footage we've just seen from Birmingham is shocking. Give us your thoughts on the whole issue of banning this breed of dog.
Well, my thoughts are really banning is not going to solve the problem. It's a bit like sticking plasters on a cut, but it's not actually fixing the root cause. And the dog in Birmingham, terrible, absolutely terrible. And under Section 3 of our Dangerous Dogs Act, that dog was committing a criminal offence. But I have to ask myself, that was a very hot day, it was a very crowded central part of Birmingham, lots going on. My little question would be, why was the dog not on a lead?
James, do you agree that a ban is the way forward here? What's your initial thought?
Oh no, banning something that we can't even define properly at this point is pretty much useless. Instead, we need to look at the behaviors from the dog and the humans and place responsibility where it needs to be placed. And that is usually on the human.
Pippa, what's your thoughts on a ban? Do you support all of this discussion in the United Kingdom recently about banning XL bullies?
Historically, banning doesn't solve the issue. There's more pit bulls in the UK now than there were in '91 when they were banned. The whole industry needs reform. We need regulations on breeders. We need to know where these dogs are being kept, and we need people to undergo mandatory training, in my mind, of dog behaviour and learning how to train their dogs properly and appropriately.
Anna, tell our viewers about the history of this dog, how it's come to the United Kingdom. What's behind this?
Well, it's a hybrid, so it is 4 different big dogs all crossed together to ideally produce a dog that had less drive than the American Pit Bull and that had more features of, say, the Old English Bulldog. So quite placid, quite heavily set and designed initially to be a good family pet. But of course, exaggeration of features is something that humans love to do with dogs, whether it's a pug, or a Pekingese, or a bulldog with the squashy features. So they've got bigger and bigger. So we've now got these XL bullies, because these bullies come in 4 different sizes, that weigh up to 70 kilos, which is a lot heavier than most human beings.
How much do they cost?
Well, the prices range from £10,000 to maybe even more than that, depending on certain bloodlines. But the problem I have with this is these dogs have come in from America with unknown bloodlines. And in the UK, it's not a registered breed with the kennel clubs. So there's no way of really tracking the breeding, the health testing, the ethical breeding of these dogs. And you've got to understand that dogs develop a lot quicker than us. So by 8 weeks of age, a dog's brain has gone through so much more development than we have at that age. And a behaviour and temperament can be really imprinted negatively at that early age. So that's why I agree with Pippa. We do need so much more legislation bringing in, and I really want the dog licence to be introduced, but to have a dog licence that has meaning and real effectiveness for dogs and their humans in this country.
James, so the breed comes from your country, from the United States. A lot of people here are only really learning about XL bullies because of the media coverage in the last few weeks, the attacks, the bloodshed, the loss of life. What's the story with the dog in America? Have you seen this kind of incident before?
Well, I've investigated more fatality attacks on humans than anyone else in the world by dogs. And I can tell you that we have seen these extra large mixed dogs. First, they were called a number of years ago monster pit bulls, and they're not really pit bulls because pit bulls, at least the fighting type, are much smaller, quicker dogs. They have their problems, but that's not what these are. These are, as Anna said, a mixture, and when you mix different things, you don't even get a consistent type. And using type is a problem.
Have there been fatal attacks in the States as well?
There have been fatal attacks. Myself, I've been on scene on approximately 40. My research has covered...
40 fatal attacks?
Yes, and my research has covered over 500. But that's everything from Pomeranians to Great Danes. There is no central breed or even type. Big dogs make big holes, little dogs make littler holes.
Pippa, talk to me about owners and their responsibilities. Do you feel that a lot of the time the authorities should be looking past what a dog looks like and what the owner is actually doing?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's nature and nurture, isn't there, in any argument? And obviously, I deal a lot with the nurture side. Obviously, as people have a dog, I think the thing is, and I think Anna's very right. We maybe do need to be reintroducing the dog licence, but with constraints around it, as in people have to understand dog behaviour and they have to have a certain amount of training in order to have a dog. But the nature side of it as well, exactly as we've already touched on, the genetics of this type is very much unknown. My understanding is now they're importing pit bull sperm. It's illegal to breed pit bulls in the UK, but you can send sperm over and introduce that into the breed. So we're getting a lot more aggression within the genetic makeup, essentially, of this breed type, matched with the owners. And unfortunately, a lot of the people who may be inclined to buy an XL bully aren't necessarily the people who are going to go to puppy classes, are going to listen to trainers, and essentially only 1 in 10 people actually seek the help of a behaviourist or a trainer anyway when having a dog, let alone people who might be more inclined to have a breed like this and actually not necessarily want to train in a more positive way, but actively train their dog for protection and aggression potentially, and that is the issue.
Pippa, you raise a very good point, and I was just about to ask you, is there a trend here that a certain type of man is weaponizing this dog? That, you know, they're using this to protect themselves or to portray, you know, hyper-masculinity to other men?
Yeah, I mean, without doubt, I would say that. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying every single XL bully owner is a typical, you know, brutish man with tattoos. Of course I'm not. And there are some lovely XL bullies out there. But these XL bullies that are doing this at the moment generally are owned by people who are looking to weaponize their dog, and looking, maybe it is gang warfare, maybe it is protection, maybe it is the biggest and the most brutish of dogs that's the most attractive. And this is the problem with banning. For the echelons of society that want a dog like this, they would potentially want a dog even more so if they were illegal, because that's what people like.
Anna, talk to me about the owners. Why would someone want to own a dog of all the breeds? Why would someone want a dog like this?
Well, I think, I know some people who've got XL bullies, and as Pippa was saying, as James was saying, they're on the dog training side of the fence, so they know what they're doing with these dogs, and they can make great pets. But I would also say that they are potentially more demanding as a dog than, say, a Pomeranian or a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. They do need more time and commitment. But I think, generally speaking now about dog ownership all over, we've seen more dog bite incidents since 2019 that peaked at its highest level in this country earlier this year, being 34% up since the pandemic. We've also seen dog ownership soar, whether it's people buying Cavapouchons, Cavapoos or XL bullies. It's almost as though people are now thinking all dogs are a brand representation of themselves. Dogs have Instagram accounts now, which I still find a bit puzzling. And I just feel we need to shape up. We need to understand that it's a privilege to own a dog, not a right. And you should be proud of your dog and get the best out of your dog. So I just think the XL bully is being exploited for its strength and its features by some, of the wrong people, and they're using the dog's strength for intimidation, which again is against the law. And it's just a shame on the dogs, really. That's all. I feel it's a great shame. And banning is just going to make them more cachet, and the criminal culture will be outcrossing them with another big dog. And they will still have these dogs. That's why I just think we need a dog licence that works a bit like a driving licence, where you get points. Your dog bites somebody, OK, you get 6 points on your dog licence. And you get to a certain number, and then your dog is taken away from you. You have to go into intensive dog training sessions, and once proven that you're capable of having your dog back, then that's great.
James, I want to ask you, in the United States, are you seeing these dogs weaponised by gangs and criminals?
We've been seeing various kinds of dogs weaponized for quite some time. For instance, there was a study actually done where nearly 900 people were interviewed and given a personality test. They were also asked at the time, if they had a dog, what kind was it? If they didn't, what did they want? And they found that those persons that tested high for antisocial or criminal behavior, such as lack of respect for authority and disregard for other people's properties, specifically wanted those status-type dogs. So we have a human population that selected these types of dogs of whatever breed, and then in my research I found that many of these people do encourage, either actively or by lack of action, those dangerous behaviors that later translate into a horrible tragedy with a human.
Well, this whole situation has become a political talking point now. Pippa, I want to read to you a few words from the British Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. So he recently said the attacks were not about a handful of badly trained dogs, but were a pattern of behaviour and it cannot go on. And Sunak added that the animals were a, quote, danger to our communities. How do you feel about this becoming a political issue?
Well, I mean, I think it has to be. And I think exactly as we've been saying, the whole industry needs reform, without doubt. Exactly as Anna said, that's my analogy. It's putting the ban is putting a bandage over a gaping wound. We need to I think we need to work alongside DEFRA. We need this to come from top down. The 8 big animal charities are also forming this dog control coalition, and I think this is absolutely right. We need some more governance of the industry. I think the attacks that we've seen recently, there's 2 elements. I mean, the one in Birmingham, the dog got out of his collar, which is why he bit the 11-year-old. The other 2 that killed Mr. Price, visiting his mother. They got out of the back of the garden. So there is an element here of the dog's being dangerously out of control, but they're choosing to do this, and that's where I think genetics plays such a part. They were enjoying themselves, they were going out purposely biting. They weren't stopping when people were trying to stop them. They were enjoying what they did. I know there's going to be restrictions brought in, and actually I think for people who do existingly have an XL bully, it is heartbreaking, but actually I think to wear them in a muzzle, get them castrated and register them, I think is a small price to pay, really, to safeguard society and their dog. They could be a loving dog, and they need to make sure their dog is represented in the best light. So I do agree with the regulations, I must say.
Anna, you're clearly passionate about dogs. I can feel your love for the animals. But tell me, how frustrated do you feel when it only ever becomes an issue in society when it's too late, when someone's lost their life?
Yes, well, it is really, really frustrating. I think the signs have been brewing, really, since before the pandemic, with a lot of people bringing dogs into their life without the experience to own a dog, without the lifestyle to bring a dog into your life, or the appropriate accommodation to own a dog properly. And really underestimating, I think, the commitment that a dog is. I know underestimate seems like a bit of a mild word to use when people have lost their lives. But, to raise a dog properly, it's every day. I see dogs being walked by dog walkers every day. People aren't really even walking their own dog anymore. And for me, taking your dog out for a walk is the whole point almost of having a dog. It's good for you, actually, to get out there. But I think that the way society is shaping dog ownership at the moment, with a lot of doggy daycare facilities, a lot of dog walking facilities, people don't spend enough time with their own dogs, whether it is a Chihuahua or an XL bully. And I think this is where it's going wrong. Dog ownership is not what it was 30 years ago. And that, I think, is a part of the root cause.
James, if you were asked to advise the British Prime Minister and his politicians in cabinet about what to do on this issue from all of your decades of experience, what tips would you give him?
I think the first place we need to start is to have somebody do what I've done in the US, someone like me, to look in and look at the attacks and see what really happened, not just the horrible video of the person being victimized. Where were the dogs and the people a minute before, 2 minutes before? What is the normal behavior of these animals, and how have they been affected? Also looking at things like, what sort of dog do we really have? Genetics, there are no genes that can be identified for aggression. There are a group of genes that identify and develop appearance, but they're separate from the genome that affects behavior. So genetics doesn't always predict. You can have a Labrador that won't chase a tennis ball, but investigating, talking to witnesses, putting together the information, putting together the demographic information. For instance, in my studies, we found that the median victim in the United States of a fatal dog attack was not some poor little child in a bad neighborhood. It was a 30-plus-year-old woman in her own property with dogs that she either owned or was sheltering in a neighborhood where the household income was over $100,000 per year.
Can I ask, James, you've investigated some terrible incidents, clearly, in the United States. How difficult is it to do that job, turning up at the scene of a death, knowing what has happened?
In one way, it's very hard, and thank goodness for my over 20 years as a police officer in the United States, because that helped me learn those coping skills. However, it's always hard. Yet I am actually quite privileged and feel honored because police agencies, because of my background and the further education up through getting my doctoral degree, they've welcomed me as really the only person that has gone into actual crime scenes and worked with them to measure physical evidence, to collect evidence from the dogs. But then I've been able to lay hands on about 60 dogs that have killed human beings and gotten behavioral evidence we never had before. And I'd like to see that done here, including meeting siblings and offspring of the dogs involved. The dogs may be dead, but we can evaluate their offspring and their siblings and their parents to see what trends go through that particular individual creature.
Pippa, I want to come to you. Do you think there's a concern now in the dog-owning community that people will have to give up their animals, that there's going to be a purge across the United Kingdom?
Yes, I'm sure. Firstly, James, I think what you've done is absolutely phenomenal. I absolutely agree. We need to be doing this in the UK. You know, I go into homes and there's dogs that I'm dealing with, spaniels, collies, you know, they can nip, as people call it, with nice, cute little breeds. They call it a nip. For a bigger dog, obviously, it's a big bite. I absolutely agree. And it must be heartbreaking for people who own an XL Bully to think, you know, with banning, could their dog be euthanized? Absolutely, my heart goes out to you. And there are a lot of very lovely XL Bullies. So, of course, people are worried. But again, as I said, I really don't think the regulations in regards to a muzzle, registering their dog and getting them castrated should be much of a hardship for people, because I think while you might not want to see your dog in a muzzle, I think it's the safest thing you can do for your dog and to safeguard the community. Exactly as Anna said, under Section 3 of the Dangerous Dogs Act, the dog only has to give apprehension it's going to bite. Well, of course, an XL Bully walking down the street, even sort of looking at you and barking at you, could give someone apprehension that they're going to bite. You know, it might be doing it out of excitement, but again, especially with all the current news, people are going to be scared. So I think to wearing a dog in a muzzle and take responsible actions is the best thing that current XL Bully owners can do.
Anna, if a ban is put in place by the British government, just talk me through what happens. Are people basically having to give their dogs up and have them taken away?
Well, I think those owners, as Pippa was saying, that have XL Bullies already, they will write to government and say, look, here's my XL Bully. They will then have to apply for exemption. All this costs money. You know, this whole process is going to cost the UK taxpayer multi-millions of pounds. That's why I say, look, let's learn from our mistakes when we banned the pit bull, because it seriously didn't work. The Dangerous Dogs Act is meant to protect the public, and it hasn't worked. So rather than waste more millions, let's spend it on overhauling ownership and the dog licence. But yes, what owners will have to do is apply for an exemption to their dog being basically seized, put in kennels for an indefinite period where no one can go and see them. That's very scary for a lot of dogs that have never lived in a kennel. It can really disturb them. I mean, it's quite cruel, arguably. Then there's court proceedings that we all know cost a fortune. Owners have to employ a dog lawyer. You need an expert witness involved. And it's a massive production to save your dog from being destroyed.
James, just come to you. Given all your experience in the United States, do you think the UK now has reached a tipping point where this dog is the breed is going to get banned, and the Prime Minister will get involved, and basically it's a political win for him?
From our point of view, or from my point of view, and not really knowing that much about your political landscape, I think this has come to a point where this is the wound that needs to be addressed at the moment, and those on all sides and all concerned have jumped on this particular train, if you will. And it needs to be addressed now so we don't, for instance, make worse legislation than we've had in the past, and perhaps even take the opportunity that's being granted to modify existing legislation to make it more precise and more to accountability, rather than assuming if we do away, for instance, with all green cars, we're not going to have car crashes anymore. Let's look at the causes. I've spoken to DEFRA. Let's investigate those causes and find out really where we are, rather than making this a football to be bashed around the pitch.
Pippa, my final question is to you. What would you say to anyone who's watching Roundtable today and owns an XL Bully and is genuinely worried, a good dog owner, and is genuinely worried about what's going to happen?
Yeah, I think I don't think I mean, existing XL bully owners, you know, they're not going to have to euthanize their dogs or anything like that. They've just got to be registered, have insurance, have to wear a muzzle, and you know, be castrated. So I just think, just be as responsible as possible with your dog. Be sensitive, I suppose, to the current climate, and you know, let people know that your dog is friendly. You know, I think if you do live in a very built-up area, there's nothing wrong with inviting neighbours out to say my dog is friendly, and to have people approach and introduce themselves. You know, I think a lot of people have got so fearful. Exactly, this is the current train. This is the momentum at the moment is the XL bully, and I think if I had an XL bully, I would be inviting other people to know that my dog is very friendly and not to worry.
Pippa, Anna, James, thank you all for your insight. Remember, you can see more discussion and debate on our YouTube channel. Search for Roundtable TRT World. But for now, from me and Brady and all of the team here, goodbye and thank you for watching.